back at it with another chapter 9, chapter 9. Okay. Interest versus commitment. Commitments are a powerful part of the 12-week year. An ability to make and keep commitments improves results, builds trust, and fosters high performance teams. Yet many of us avoid making commitments, and worse yet, we often break them when the going gets tough. To be truly great at what we do, we have to become better at keeping our promises. Commitment is an act, not a word. Jean Paul Sartre. There is an old anecdote about commitments involving a chicken and a pig at breakfast time. The chicken has contributed the egg and is therefore merely interested in the breakfast. The pig, however, contributes the bacon and is thus completely committed. It's a humorous story, but ultimately paints a negative picture of commitment. In reality, kept commitments benefit both parties involved by improving relationships, strengthening integrity, and building self confidence. Commitments are powerful and oftentimes life changing. I'm sure you can recall a time when you were determined to accomplish something meaningful and you were willing to do whatever it took to make it happen. One of the most powerful commitments that I have ever made was to my father. It was the summer after my first year of college, and I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. The two of us were working in his garden, talking about my freshman year. It quickly became apparent to me during that conversation that my father and I had different perspectives on the purpose of college. The issue was my grades. I was on the dean's list, but unfortunately for me, the dean kept two lists, and I was on the one for academic probation. My father explained that he was unwilling to continue helping with my tuition unless my results improved. I felt terrible, and I made a commitment that day to my father and myself. I promised him that when I went back to college in the fall, I would get all A's. He challenged me to meet my commitment by adding to the stakes. If I did get all A's, he would give me $500. If I didn't, I would owe him $500. When I went back to school that fall, I pulled out all the stops. I went to class, took notes in lectures, read the text, and did the homework. I also stopped socializing as much as I had during my first year. In the end, I got the grades, straight A's. The $500 is long gone, but that commitment changed my life. I started showing up on the real dean's list and never went back. My story is a great example of commitment. A commitment is a personal promise. Keeping your promises to others builds trust and strong relationships, and keeping promises to yourself builds character, esteem, and success. Unless commitment is made, there are only promises and hopes, but no plans. Peter Drucker. A definition of commitment that I like is the state of being bound emotionally or intellectually to a course of action. And that's from the American Heritage Dictionary, 4th edition. From this perspective, a commitment is a conscious choice to act in order to create a desired result. We all know intuitively that an ability to keep commitments is fundamental to effective execution and high performance. But many of us fall short of our commitments on a regular basis. It seems that when things get difficult, we find reasons why we can't keep our promises and we shift our focus to other activities. Often, our interest wanes when things get tough. It is important to understand that there is a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when circumstances permit. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. When we commit to something, we do things we would not ordinarily do. The question of if goes away, and the only question you ask is how. Commitment is powerful, but there are times when all of us struggle to commit. Here are the 4 keys to successful commitments. 1. Strong desire. In order to fully commit to something, you need a clear and personally compelling reason. Without a strong desire, you will struggle when the implementation gets difficult. But with a compelling desire, seemingly insurmountable obstacles are seen as challenges to be met. The desired end result needs to be meaningful enough to get you through the hard times and keep you on track. 2. Keystone actions. Once you have an intense desire to accomplish something, you then need to identify the core actions that will produce the result you're after. In today's world, many of us have become spectators rather than participants. We must remember that it's what we do that counts. In most endeavors, there are often many activities that help you accomplish your goal. However, there are usually a few core activities that account for the majority of the results. And in some cases, there are only 1 or 2 keystone actions that ultimately produce the result. It is critical that you can identify these keystones and focus on them. 3. Count the cost. Commitments require sacrifice. In any effort, there are benefits and costs. Too often, we claim to commit to something without considering the cost, the hardships that will have to be overcome to accomplish your desire. Costs can include time, money, risk, uncertainty, loss of comfort, and so on. Identifying the cost before you commit allows you to consciously choose whether you are willing to pay the price of your commitment. When you face any of these costs, it is extremely helpful to recognize that you anticipated them and decided that reaching your goal was worth it. 4. Act on commitments, not feelings. There will be times when you won't feel like doing the critical activities. We've all been there. Getting out of bed at 5 a.m. to jog in the winter cold can be daunting, especially when you're in a toasty warm bed. This is facts. It is during these times that you will need to learn to act on your commitments instead of your feelings. If you don't, you will never build any momentum and you will get stuck continually restarting, or, as is so often the case, giving up. Learning to do the things you need to do, regardless of how you feel, is a core discipline for success. Many times, commitments are made more arduous by the time frame for which they are made. It is difficult to commit to anything for a lifetime. Even keeping a promise for an entire year can be challenging. With the 12-week year, you are not asked to make a lifetime or even annual commitments. With the 12-week year, you are not asked to make lifetime or even annual commitments, but rather 12-week commitments. It is more feasible to establish and keep a commitment for 12 weeks than to keep it for 12 months. At the end of the 12 weeks, you reassess your commitments and begin again. Our commitments ultimately shape our lives. They support sound marriages, create lasting relationships, drive our results, and help build our character. There is just something incredibly empowering about knowing if you say you're going to do something, that you can count on yourself, that you don't need to hedge your bets. And that is chapter 9. Let's get it. Double digits now. We're in chapter 10. Let's get it. Chapter 10, Greatness in the Moment. They say that with technology, the world is now smaller. I think it's also moving faster. Life seems to be getting busier and speeding up. Agreed. Don't get me wrong, technology is great. My phone now has way more computing capability and usefulness than the first laptop I purchased in 1988 for about $6,000. The downside is that we now have very little downtime in our day. It used to be that on the drive to and from work, you could ramp up and ramp down, but now most people spend that time on the phone. The natural margin in our day is disappearing, but we still need time to mentally relax. In this hurry new world, multitasking has become a highly valued skill. The belief is that in order to get the most out of my day, I need to be fully scheduled, fully committed, and constantly on the run. The fear is that I might miss out on something good, so I hurry from one meeting or event to the next, squeezing in a phone call or two in between. When I'm in meetings, I am constantly checking my email and messages because I don't want to miss anything. And with texting, I can carry on 2 or 3 conversations at one time. Not many people would admit that this is the way they operate, but just look around you. This is the way most people behave. In our efforts to not miss anything, we unwittingly miss everything. Our attention is spread over various subjects and conversations. And when we strive to do so much, we actually apply very little of ourselves to an individual activity. We feel stressed out, burned out, exhausted, frustrated, and disconnected. In the end, this approach practically guarantees that we will be mediocre by virtue of the fact that nothing gets our full attention. Not the important projects, not the important conversations, and not the important people. Most people are running so fast they miss life. They are in one place physically and another place mentally. You are most effective when you are mentally where you are physically, when you are present in the moment. Athletes call it playing in the zone. When you're present in the moment, your thinking is clear and focused. Decisions come easily, and you move through tasks almost effortlessly. When you are in the moment, you live with grace and ease. When you are totally present in the moment, when you connect with the now, life is more enjoyable. The best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. Abraham Lincoln. You can't change the past or act in the future. The current moment, the eternal right now, is all you have. Right now, you can affect what happens to you for the rest of your life. The future is created now. Our dreams are achieved in the moment. My wife Judy and I are both cancer survivors. For those of you who have dealt with cancer, either yourself or with a family member, you know firsthand how quickly you gain an appreciation for the present moment. The fact is that life happens in the moment, life is lived in the moment, and ultimately greatness is created in the moment. Performing in the moment. Like many people around the world, every couple of years, I tune into the Olympic Games to watch amazing athletes do incredible things. A few years back, as I watched the events, the following thought crossed my mind. When does a champion become great? The obvious answer seemed to be when the individual achieves a high level of performance, such as winning a gold medal. But as I considered my own question further, I came to the conclusion that greatness is not achieved when the result is reached, but rather long before that, when an individual chooses to do the things that he knows he needs to do. Agreed. Let's stick with the Olympic athlete as an example. The athlete becomes great not when she breaks a world record and wins a medal. That's when the world recognizes her. But in reality, the event is just the evidence of her greatness. The athlete achieved greatness months, perhaps years earlier, when she decided to run the extra mile, swim the extra laps, or to perform just one more jump. I would argue that Michael Phelps didn't achieve greatness when he won his 18th gold medal or when he won his first. He became great when he decided to do the things that would allow him to win. He achieved greatness the moment he chose to put the effort into his training, spending the hours in the gym and pool, and eating the foods his body needed instead of those he wanted, strengthening his mental resolve. The gold medal wins were simply the evidence of his greatness. Michael Phelps had actually achieved greatness many years earlier. Results are not the attainment of greatness, but simply confirmation of it. You become great long before the results show it. It happens in an instant, the moment you choose to do the things you need to do to be great. Let him who would enjoy a good future waste none of his present. Roger Ward Babson. What I find profound is that the difference between greatness and mediocrity on a daily and weekly basis is slim, yet the difference in results down the road is tremendous. The difference between greatness and mediocrity for a salesperson is 2 or 3 extra appointments a week, 5 or 10 more calls a day, 3 hours out of a 45-hour work week spent working on their business. For a manager or leader, it's recognizing the good work of one more person each day, delegating a task instead of doing it themselves, spending 3 hours of their week on strategic priorities, giving verbal praise and encouragement to someone who's struggling. On a daily and weekly basis, these differences seem minor, but in the long run, they are significant. Each and every one of us has the God given ability to be great. What makes a champion is the discipline to do the extra things, even when, especially when, you don't feel like it. The encouraging news is that regardless of how you've performed in the past or how you are performing currently, you can be great, beginning today, simply by choosing to do the things you know you need to do. It really is no more complicated than that. In the end, you are either great in the moment or not at all. In the first chapter, I wrote about the 2 lives most of us have, the one we live and the one we are capable of living. Don't settle for anything less than the life you are capable of. Make a commitment to be great each day and watch what can happen in just 12 short weeks. And that is chapter 10. So we're going to make these commitments, right? In the comments, put I'm committed or whatever variation of that you want to say. I know we like to add our own spice to things. Peace.